sells homes. He sells homes in different area codes. Area codes. Homes. Homes in different area codes. Area codes.
All right, man, here we go. We have been on a, 7 or 8 month hiatus here, you think? Is that about right, Anthony, since we did it last?
I understand. It's been a long year.
And man, are we kicking it off with some fireworks with my main man, Mr. Leslie LJ Hanna.
Yep.
This dude has been in my life since 2015. Friend, investor, confidant.
Yeah, check this out.
And pumpkin IPA connoisseur.
Connoisseur. Yep. You guys need to know anything about a pumpkin IPA / cider / pumpkin alcohol. I'm the pumpkin for you.
So beyond all that, like, this dude is the epitome of the American dream. And I mean that legit. Like,
sidebar, I'm not an American, by the way, so that's a true compliment.
But you know,
compliment.
But that's the thing about the American dream is you don't have to be an American.
That's fair.
to literally epitomize what the American dream is. So I want you to just kind of start with your Bahamian roots.
Okay.
And talk us up through Detroit and Mercy, and basically when you get to Rogersville.
I need to get to Rogersville. So getting to Rogersville,
so I need you to go from the Bahamas to Rogersville, which is a pretty common trajectory.
Yeah.
For most people.
First, my life went exactly as planned, obviously.
Right, yeah.
Exactly as planned. Well, first off, thanks for having me here, man. Love you, like this man said. He's a brother. He's a friend. I'd give anything for him. And honestly, we wouldn't be here. I mean, me and my wife and my family wouldn't be here without the relationship that we've built over there. So I appreciate the opportunity. I'm from the Bahamas. LJ Hanna, born and raised in Nassau, Bahamas, moved to Exuma, Bahamas, and decided I was going to come to the United States for sports. That was the only plan I ever had. I was an athlete in the Bahamas. I used to compete for my school. I used to compete for the country. And I said, you know what? Track's going to be my life. And then I was going to college, and I got a bunch of scholarships. And one came in from Detroit, and they offered me a master's degree fully paid for. And so I was like, well, Detroit's cold and scary. Mm-hmm. My mom was like, thank God for parents that you're going to go to Detroit regardless. Like, right. You're not turning down a free education. So I came to the U.S. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go to school. I'm going to run track. And when I'm done, I'm going to compete for the Bahamas team. And God had other plans for me. So I got hurt in 2011. I was finishing my bachelor's. I had to make a decision. Do I continue to pursue track and field, or do I pursue my degree, which was my backup plan, engineering? I was like, yeah, engineering's a good fallback, but I'll never use it. Again, thank God for parents, and God had other plans for me. I decided to make the transition over to engineering, and Detroit's the automotive capital of the United States. So I started off at an automotive company, and they said, you know what you're learning in your master's, the operational excellence stuff, problem solving, we want you to share that information with one of our manufacturing divisions. And they're like, the manufacturing division is steering, and it's in Rogersville, Tennessee, Marion, Virginia, and Querétaro, Mexico. Now, I'm a recent grad. I was actually still doing my master's. And I was about to graduate. I'm like, so you're going to give me a company credit card and you're going to send me to Mexico? I was like, well, sign me up, coach.
So where was this? Where was, what'd you say, Querétaro, Mexico?
Querétaro, Mexico.
So where is that exactly?
That is like
because I've heard of Marion and I've heard of Rogersville,
man,
but I've not heard of Querétaro.
You're gonna put me on the spot for Mexican geography right now. All right.
So is it a place to where you could truly like dive in with a company credit card? I mean, is it like?
Oh yeah, no, it's a city. It's
okay,
a city. It's a city. It isn't a small town in Mexico. It's like I think it's like an hour and a half south of Mexico City. Don't hold me, geography folk.
Sure.
But it's a big enough city that it's a city.
Okay.
So it's not like a Rogersville or a Marion.
Right.
You know, those are big areas.
Yeah, I know. That's why I'm surprised that, you ended up here.
Yeah. So I did that, and I accepted the job to come down to the steering division, which is all 3 facilities. And they told me you can't accept the role until you see Rogersville. I'm like, no, I accept. Like, I seen the salary.
Sure. You
told me the job. You want me to teach Six Sigma. Mm-hmm. I accept. They said, no. you can't accept until you see Rogersville.
Right.
And I was like, it's a town in America. Like, I'll be fine. Like, I accept. And they literally shipped me down to
I've been to
Rogersville.
Miami before.
It's like,
what more do I need to see?
Like,
I've been to America.
I've lived in the snow. Like, I've done this. I've seen America, right? I watched the Disney Channel growing up.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I know what goes on. I've seen it.
Sure.
They sent me down to the Hale Springs Inn in Rogersville, Tennessee. One of the best places I've ever stayed. So I more than credit to that. It's a tavern. They got a little tavern on the downstairs. I really appreciated it. But I got it. They had Rogersville has one blinking yellow light. It's a town of 2,000 people. And people always think I'm from the Bahamas. So they think that it's a smaller country than the United States. So I must be used to smaller environments. Well, the Bahamas is like Disney World. It's like a bunch of tourists, a bunch of random faces, a bunch of activity every single day.
Right.
So even though it's a smaller country, I grew up in a very, very busy, very diverse, very active, a whole lot of stuff going on always.
Right.
And then moved to Detroit, which Detroit has its ups and its downs, but it's a city, so it's very diverse, very active, a lot of industry, a lot of things going on. And then I went to Rogersville.
Right. Yeah.
And I was like, man, I'm in 1904s right now. This is crazy. They just got their liquor license a decade ago. I can't believe that's a real thing in America.
You bought your horse that week and a pistol, and
listen, my gas probably is still unfiltered.
Yeah.
I don't know if their gas stations have filtered gas yet. I love my Rogersville folks, so I love y'all. I love y'all. But it was the best decision I've ever made, man. So that's actually what got me through that roller coaster. Went up to the Detroit for school and loved it. Got my first U.S. family up there. All the friends that I met in college, all the families that I spent. There were summers I didn't go home. I just spent summers inside people's basements.
Yeah.
And all of those individuals, they're
I had a summer like that also. I think it was 2004.
It's the best summer ever, man.
Yeah.
Sleeping inside one of your friends' basements with all their siblings and just becoming a part of the family, playing Monopoly on Sunday and having big arguments. It was life. It was life. I loved it. I love all my Detroit fam. And they sent me down to Rogersville. I stayed in Rogersville. That was the home base. Marion for 3 months and then Querétaro for 3 months. And that's what got me down to the region. It was work.
Yeah.
My thought was I was going to go back up to Detroit eventually. It's that's where my family is. And again, God had other plans and I'm still down here.
So what year was this, Roger? When Rogersville becomes permanent, what year was this?
God, how long have I been here? 2014 maybe?
Yeah, I think it was 14 because this is where I can kind of pick up.
Mm-hmm.
Because late 2014, early 2015, this is around the time that wheels are in motion for Peak, the Young Professional Organization.
Yep, I love that group.
In Kingsport. Yeah, man, that was a great group.
We're
on a magazine cover together.
We are on a magazine cover.
I still got that guy.
I got 3 of them.
Do you really? So I've got 2. So I've got one that I could still pull out and go through it and check everybody out and where we were back then. And then I've got one that's still plastic sealed. So that's the one that's worth the money.
Yep.
That's the one that's going to Antique Roadshow at some point in the future.
I can't wait. I was going to save it so that when my kids grow up, I could tell them I was a celebrity.
Yeah.
It's but I was on what's the name of the magazine?
VIP Scene.
VIP Scene. Yeah.
VIP Scene.
Mm-hmm.
So I get a phone call from one of my dear friends, Kim Jones, who at that point in time was chairing the membership committee at the Chamber of Commerce because she had actually ran into you at an airport. And at that point in time, Peak was the thing, man.
It was.
And it still is. I mean, there's a group of people that have really taken the reins on that, but it was a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point in time, we were one of the largest young professional organizations in the entire Southeast, and Kim was one of the bigger cheerleaders for that group. So she runs into you in an airport. And that personality, she calls me and she's like, you need to meet this dude, in the airport. And I was like, yeah, okay. What's his name? Write it down. We'll get him involved in the organization somehow. And fast forward a couple months later, and you're at the big event.
That's a crazy story. I did not know she called you. So she told me about Peak, man. We talked about it inside the airport. And she told me to contact you about Peak to learn more about it.
Right.
But I didn't know she called you. I didn't realize I had that kind of impact. I thought she was just a saleswoman.
Yeah.
I was like, they're going to charge me a $700 membership fee.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to have to give my first blood. And, I was scared at first.
Yeah.
I was worried. You know,
we weren't going to charge you $700. She said it was this dude that's living in Rogersville. And I was like, man, I'm not going to do that to him.
Oh, she was trying to save my life. She's like, he could use your assistance. He could use your assistance.
So you come to the event and we meet each other. We hit it off. You become part of the organization.
Mm-hmm.
Magazine covers, all these events. We do all these cool things. You meet your wife through the organization, your future wife. But beyond that, I give you the real estate pitch. And I'm like, hey, I know you're going to want to buy something at some point. You're renting in Rogersville with 2 other dudes. Great guys. But you don't want to be living with them cats forever, right? So
that's true.
So here's where things really get kind of just ironic and cool and serendipitous and any other synonym that you can throw in there, because so many things have aligned with you and I, man, like full circle stories and just success stories. And you have the best portfolio of any investor that I work with.
That's a compliment.
And that's a compliment to you, man, because I mean, you do things the right way. You're super intentional with what you do. You're incredibly analytical. Everything is driven by numbers, and it's either green light or it's red light with you.
That's fair.
I mean, it's cut and dry.
It's a numbers game,
and that's where you're at. Mm-hmm. So we sit down in 2015.
This is so crazy.
At Two Dads Cafe at the corner of Charlemont, or Sullivan and Boone, I think is where that is.
It's at Sullivan and Boone.
Yeah, you would know, and we'll get to that. We'll get to that later. Why you would know. And I remember this. We met for breakfast that morning, and the thing that I remember most about that is you said, and I don't remember these verbatim, and I'm hoping you will. There were 3 options you outlined for me in what you wanted. It was either something to rent in Kingsport, something to live in just to buy and be there for, and who knows how long, basically, or something to live in for a short amount of time, and then it will become an investment property. It will become your first investment property, right? So fast forward to April of 2016, we closed on 2005 Sand Street.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. And that one was it met number 3. I was like,
It met number 3.
Yeah, we had gone through some options, and I was like, this one is it's a starter home, a nice like first home buyers kind of home, but it's also a good rental. It wasn't overpriced. It was at good market rates. You could rent it for close to some of the rules that you have in real estate. I don't even think back then I knew the real estate rules, to be honest. There are a few things.
You know them now. You've rewritten them now.
Yeah, listen, I live by them now. But I think I was just like, I feel like we can make some money off of this. Plus, it has a good backyard for parties. That was probably my like.
You're scoping out like a spot for a hot tub.
Yep.
And finishing out that basement.
First thing I bought at Sand Street was a hot tub.
There you go.
Brand new hot tub.
There you go.
Before I bought dishes.
We've not gotten to the investing part yet. That's coming later.
First off,
first thing, hot tub.
Let's be clear though, the hot tub represents my entire lifestyle though. Like if I would have bought things before the hot tub, it wouldn't have been really me. That was a very me thing to do. We needed a hot tub before we needed dishes.
Sure.
Like that was a real thing. That was a real thing.
You needed one before dishes. Seth Rogen needed one to time travel in.
For sure,
when investing, hot tub first.
Priorities. Priorities, man.
So, get you that. You're settled in that for a minute, and then we transition to 4040 Lake Forest Drive, right? So that was Aaron Fite's property. Aaron and Betty's, or they
got it after us.
I'm fast forwarding. Yeah, I'm fast forwarding. So we got that first, and that was your first lake. So that was an upgrade as far as square footage, as far as location, as far as amenities. But that was also about 467 feet up off the lake also, right?
Yeah. So when we started, my wife is she knows obviously our entire lifestyle. But for the first 4 or 5 years of our relationship, every year and a half, 2 years, I moved.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I wanted to do was I wanted to house hack. I wanted to get into a property and I wanted to live in it for up to 2 years. Because if you sell your house after living in it for 2 years, you don't have to pay capital gains tax.
There you go.
So I knew that rule. So I was like, at the 1 year, 8 month mark, I started looking.
Yeah.
And so 4040 came on the market, and I was like, all right, babe, it's that time. We're about to move, and we're about to rent the property that we live in. So this is going to be our first rental, right? And she was like, well, I'm willing to move, but I'm just not willing to downgrade. right? And we had some conversations about it. She's not a huge, nobody likes to move. Moving, even if you're upgrading, is hectic.
It's terrible. I feel like I facilitate the worst thing ever.
It's the worst thing in the world. It's one of the worst things in the world. So I was able to like sell her at this point. She's my girlfriend. We're seriously committed. Side story, like when we moved into Sand Street, we closed. I had met her like 6 months before that, maybe. And she moved into Sand Street with me 6 months after us meeting each other.
Yeah, at the ugly Christmas sweater party.
We had met 6 months before in December, and 6 months later, me and her were living inside the same house. So it worked out, you know.
At an event where everyone purposefully tries to look as bad as they possibly can, you two fell in love at that. So, man, you want to speak to like character and falling in love with some personalities, and
we still make fun of each other for that night.
Yeah, we all
look
look like hell.
Yeah, there were inside
and y'all
jokes
fell in love that night.
Yeah, we fell in love later. We fell in heavy like that night.
Yeah.
We fell in heavy like that night. Heavy like. But she moved into there, and I told her, I was like, I know we moved in. We've been here for a year and a half. We got to move. Like that was the plan. And she's like, all right. And we moved over to Patrick Henry Lake on our first lakefront property. We're big lake people. We're big water people. Being from the Bahamas, I always wanted to be close to the water. The lakes are not the Bahamas water in any way, shape, or form.
No, but that water thing's inherent, bro.
But you need to be close to the water. You need to be close to the water. So we got that, but we're on the steep side of Patrick Henry and close to the dam, so the water was really, really cold. So we didn't use it as much. So it was easier for me to convince her 2 years later to move again. But that was our second property, and that's when we started talking about, all right, now we got a rental. It's time for us to get into rentals.
Yep.
Which is when Tiffany Court
ironically, right?
Yep. Yeah. So you want to hear some true irony?
Sure. Let's do it.
So our business is called KKLP Enterprises. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but the acronym stands for my brother, me, and my mom. So one of my brother's names is Kendrick.
Right.
My wife's name is Tiffany. The first multi-unit we ever bought is on the intersection of Kendrick Creek and Tiffany Court.
Bro, that's true. I didn't even think about
Kendrick Creek and Tiffany Court.
The wordplay with Kendrick Creek.
The first multifamily we ever purchased.
Is it spelled the same?
It's spelled exactly the same.
That's nuts.
Listen, I had sent that to my brother, and I was like, look, man, I think this is a sign.
Yeah.
And they always get pushback, but we got it. I was like, I'm not walking away from a multifamily that has my brother's name and my serious girlfriend's name in it. Like, I'm doing this. This is going to be the first multi. So that's how we got into Tiffany Court after we'd lived in Lake Forest. So that got us to 7 rental units. 6 at Tiffany Court plus Sand Street.
Okay. So we're at 7 right there, right? So 6. So I remember when you called me and told me like, hey, we're going to look at turning Sand into a rental. Again. So the thing you guys need to know about LJ, we were just actually at his 40 under 40 event with the Business Journal, and one of his bosses, and I can totally attest to this, one of his bosses used a quote, and the guy who was actually emceeing the event, when he was reading off all these things about LJ, was the quote from his boss at Eastman that said, LJ doesn't set goals, he assassinates goals. And that's true, man, because literally we had met at Two Dads Cafe in 2015, late 2015, and here we are now in 2017, Sand Street's becoming a rental. It was option number 3. Live in it a couple of years, then it becomes a rental. And I remember going over there, and I heard the first thing that no one ever wants to hear when they walk up to potentially do a listing opportunity, and it's dogs barking. Tiffany's dogs are going crazy. I'm like, oh man, this place is going to be trash. But it was in great shape. It was in great shape.
Yep, thank you to my wife.
So Travis Featherstone moves into, and what better way to sort of dip your toes into investment properties and in the rental game than get somebody you know, somebody you trust, to sort of make it a little bit easier on yourself, right? You got somebody in there you're going to trust, so I'm sure that helped tremendously.
It was perfect. It was perfect.
In priming you for the road you're getting ready to go down.
For those that don't know who Travis Featherstone is, he's one of my closest business partners. He's one of my closest friends.
And he's one of the best human beings that anyone will ever come across.
Yeah, so
hands down.
Him and I are in business together as well. So you guys will hear the name Travis probably from this point forward. But when I came to Rogersville, Travis had come to Rogersville a month before then. And Kevin, which you want to hear as much, Kevin Lemke, one of my other really, really close friends, had come like a month after me. So we always had this running joke. A Bahamian, a Korean, and a Filipino show up in Rogersville.
Yeah.
And
what's the punchline? It is. It's
Rogersville's
like a great
the punchline. Showed up in Rogersville is the punchline. That is the punchline. Like we were probably 3 of the 11 diverse people in Rogersville. To be fair, like it was probably 15. I think that's what like the demographics. You can Google me and check it. I think there's 15 diverse people inside Rogersville. Sure. We were 3 of the 15. We had a hard percentage of it.
There you go, man.
But we all showed up and we just hit it off. Like we were just outside of diversity. We were just great individuals. We were all recent grads at that point in time, somewhat within the last few years. Travis obviously was a part of the military and had retired from that. But we all just loved each other. And so he had moved to Ohio for a little bit. He was coming back in town to work at Eastman and he needed a place to stay. And I was like, well, let me tell you something.
Check this out.
I've got a place that you will enjoy.
So again, man, stars align for that because you know you're going to go down this road, but you have zero experience in it. So you've got a guy that you know, that you trust, that's going to be in there, so you can kind of get the ins and outs and see what potential scenarios could come up. I mean, Kevin's squashing these things. I mean, not Kevin, Travis. Yeah, but obviously having somebody there that you know, much easier scenario than what potentially could have been. So then we go to Lake Forest. So I'm just want to kind of speak from like the real estate perspective of this because it was on Patrick Henry Lake, but there was no dock down there. Nope. Right. Nope. So immediately in my mind, I'm like, LJ, there's a chance for some serious equity here because, yeah, I get it. You're going to have to traverse 140 steps probably to get down to the bottom of this thing, but somebody's going to be willing to traverse 140 steps to get to the lake, right? And so I'm like, hey, get you a dock down there, get you some stairs. When the time's right for you guys to move on from this, you guys have some serious equity. But you guys parked it there for a little bit. You all were there and did some things, and of course Tiffany Court comes along, and once March of 2020 rolls around, right in the middle of the
COVID,
pandemic.
Is that when we moved again? Oh yeah,
that was Bondwood. Yeah,
we did. So I want to keep so Tiffany Court was
early
2019.
2019 January. Yep. Dude, you buy things. I don't know. You would think like a Bahamian dude would want to be out looking at properties like in the middle of winter, but everything you've bought has been in like
the first quarter of the year.
It's been in the first quarter of the year. When it's like freezing cold, bro, and like it's dark and like we're out there with flashlights and stuff.
It just works out, man. Listen, that's when the numbers work. Everyone wants to move during the summer, so people are having their extra equity on their selling price.
I told y'all.
It is a numbers game.
Anything that happens with this guy, there's some sort of an analytical reason behind it. Some sort of a data-driven.
October to April are normally when individuals.
I was going to ask you about this specifically.
October to April is when you can get the best deals on properties from individuals that are selling based on homes because nobody wants to move in the winter. Everyone wants to move in summer. Yeah. It's an insane, it just works. But so
it's good to know because I know my family and I are going to get to eat here in the next few months.
every few months, yeah. We're talking about a deal right now, actually.
Yeah, I know. Well, we've got one closing on the 27th, and now we're talking about another deal in Elizabeth at the same point in time. So we're good.
2019. I just want to make sure that date is solid.
Go ahead and order it, babe. We're good.
Yeah. 2019, man. I remember that because that was the point that I was like, all right, it's time to accelerate. I had learned what I needed to learn from kind of property managing with Travis. Travis moved out like, I think, less than a year. And we started renting to another tenant after him. And so we'd had some landlord mistakes. I had to rip up a carpet that the toilet in the basement overflowed. So sewage filled carpets. Other people's feces and all that stuff. Like you learn really quickly as a landlord the things you never want to do. But also, I wouldn't be the type of landlord we are now if I hadn't gone through some of those experiences.
You got to get your hands on some raw sewage in order to like know how to be proactive and not do it again, right?
It works.
Yeah.
So we did all that, and then in 2019, I said, "All right, babe, we got the plan, we got the numbers, we got the metrics. It's time to go." And she said, "All right, I'm willing to try it," and that's when we got Tiffany Court. And it was a God thing. Tiffany Court and Kendra Creek in 2019. I remember that.
So that puts us at 7 units right now. So so then get the call again, like, hey, let's go check out Bondwood. We go to Bondwood. So this is a non-investment opportunity here. This is again, you guys just upgrading.
No, that was an investment.
Well, from the rental perspective, because you're going to cash out on all this equity on Lake Forest at this point in time.
But that's why we bought it, though.
Sure. Well, and that was the thing, because we're really getting to like, COVID's hitting.
Yeah.
And it's one of these weird things. And I still remember the conversation I had with Blair. Like, when we find out everything's going to be shutting down, I went through 2008, 2009, 2010. I very much remember what that was like, working part-time at a sawmill just to put food on the table and be able to function at that point in time. So COVID hits, and no one really knows what's going to happen at this point in time with COVID, right? There's so many variables. And turns out the market takes off.
Yeah.
It absolutely skyrockets.
It does.
And specifically here, because employers are like, hey, you can't be in an office setting. You have to work from home.
Yep. So people needed homes.
So people needed homes. But at that point in time, too, you've got these cities that are just packed in these apartment buildings. And you've got thousands and thousands of people in close proximity to one another. So everyone's just like, to hell with this.
Let me get to an area with some space.
Let me get somewhere to where I can, breathe, and I don't have to be around this many people, and I'm going to reduce my chances of getting this, because at this point we don't know anything about it.
And no income tax.
And no income tax. So we've already got this incredibly palatable place to live from the standpoint of weather, from taxes, from cost of living, to proximity to, cities. I mean, we always joke, we've got everything you need here, but everything you want's a day's drive away, right? We're
within 4 hours.
Day's drive from 70% of the population.
Nashville, Charlotte, Asheville, Knoxville, Cherokee. Like, in less than 4 hours, you could be at some of the greatest cities in America from here.
So you buy Bondwood before things kind of blow up. You get a remarkable deal on a 40-some hundred square foot house in Johnson City.
$57.75.
Who's counting?
$57.75.
$57.75, right?
$57.75. So let me tell you why.
We get this guy for under $400,000. Am I right on that?
$393.
Yeah.
So we are looking for another investment property, and so I'm looking at multifamilies. Sure. I can't find a multifamily. Yeah. So my metrics, one of the things that you'll realize, like, I'm very structured about what we purchase. We only purchase multifamilies.
Right.
I couldn't find a multifamily, so I started getting disappointed. Like, LJ, you're not growing fast enough. You know what? I'm going to type in lowest price per square foot on Zillow and see what pops up.
First I've heard this before.
Yeah, see what pops up.
Yeah.
And so I'm putting lowest price per square foot on Zillow, thinking I'm going to find a foreclosure. I'm going to find a piece of crap that needs some work, needs some sweat equity that we can get back put together and rent. I'm like, because I can't find a fully occupied multi. This property shows up at $67 a square foot.
Which is unheard of right now.
So everything else on the street had sold for $130 within the last year.
Yeah.
$67 a square foot. I have no idea why they sold it at $67 a square foot. I love you guys. Thank you guys for the investment. But so I'm talking to Tiffany, and I'm like, Tiffany, I want you to go see this house with me. They've got an open house this weekend. And she's like, a house? I thought we were looking for an investment.
It was $67 a square foot, and it had an in-ground pool.
Oh, no,
that's the other thing, which is the golden unicorn right now.
6,000 square feet. It has a full pool with a diving board. It had a theater room. It has 5 bedrooms, 6 bath, a open concept kitchen. It is. It doesn't make sense that it was priced what it was priced at. But again, this was before the market went crazy, and I'm not sure what the seller's motivations are. So I'm not going to try and infer what that might be. What I do know is me and Tiffany went there on Saturday. I thought somebody died. I was like, somebody had to die in this property for this.
You start questioning things.
Yeah,
right?
it didn't make sense. So we walk through the property, we walk out of the property, and I look at Tiffany. I'm like, Tiffany, we're buying this.
Yeah.
She's like, why? I was like, because that is the best deal I've ever seen on a property, ever. She's
because we're right off of Mountain View, directly behind Lowe's in state of Franklin.
19.
Yeah, in the best location, one of the best locations in Johnson City, and we're at $67 a square foot.
It was insane.
Yeah.
So I was like, I don't care if we move here or not, because we were at Patrick Henry, we were on the lake. We weren't planning on moving at that point. I was looking for investments, but I was like, we're buying this no matter what. And so we put in an offer. Literally, I called you on the porch.
Yeah.
I called you on the porch. I was like, hey man, I'm sending you an address right now. Send over the contract now.
Yeah.
And I think 45 minutes later, you sent over the contract, and we got denied. I don't know if you remember.
I do remember.
Because they were under contract. They were under contract already, but the person had a contingency. And I said, listen, I went back inside there. I was like, listen, we have 0 contingency. If you're willing to sell to us, we will buy it. Period. And I think on Tuesday, the other individual's contingency fell through.
Something happened and it opened the door for us. Yeah.
And you gave me a phone call.
And we were there.
And you gave me, I was like, done.
Yeah.
Done. We still live there. Done.
Yeah.
I was so happy. I was so happy.
Such an awesome house, man. So yeah, still there. And then we hadn't sold Lake Forest. So we sell Lake Forest to some people that I've known for forever, man. Great folks. And that's the great thing, because at that point in time, I feel like you made the most amount of money that you could have possibly made in 2020 on that.
Correct.
And Aaron and Betty, they turned around and sold this thing a few months ago after they completely flipped the house, and then they maximized the amount that they could have possibly made. Oh, yeah. So from the standpoint of like just a person who's like a friend to both of these people, couldn't have been a more fortunate situation. Just
it worked out well.
It did. It really did. So
we got the cash that we needed to help accelerate our additional investments from the sale of that.
That was it.
So that was great. That was a good timing.
So that's 2020. So that's all we do in 2020. We're still hanging tight at the 7 investment properties. And then we realize what's happening with the market. Mm-hmm. And we're like, all right, we've got a good tenant in Sand. They want to buy it. Mm-hmm. Here's what they need to buy it for, because we see the writing on the wall with what the market's going to be. So at this point, we're not looking at it for the long-term game. We're looking at it short-term. Yep, Let's cash out the equity, right? And then we're going to start diversifying that equity.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So we sell Sand Street in January of 2021, and the next month Nathan comes knocking. Yep.
Right. Yep. Was Nathan next?
Nathan was next. The very next month. The very next month, bro. February. Yeah. The very next month was 2500 Nathan Street. Yeah. And so that was a fourplex.
It's a fourplex. It's a fourplex.
Yeah.
It's a fourplex with 4 individuals that have been there for over a decade. They're
forever, man.
They are and I love all of the people that we support as tenants. They're the best tenants we have.
They've been there since like
forever.
Early 2000s, basically, right?
They have a level of ownership of that property. There's an individual there that literally collects the rent.
He's like property manager. He's like live-in property manager.
He collects the rent.
Right?
Like he's so good with them that people give him the money. Imagine being in an apartment and going next door and giving your rent to a stranger.
Yeah, right.
That's what they do with that unit. So I was like, well, this is a no-brainer.
Well, and here's the other thing too, is that's 4 units, right?
It is.
And we got that for under 200,000, I believe. Did we? Am I right on that? Or no, it was just over 200, I think.
No.
I don't have the prices on this written down.
I don't remember what we paid.
But regardless, like just in talking in that general area, you can't touch a fourplex right now.
No.
For that area, for that price. And people that have been there for that long, man, long term, all of those tenants have been there for forever. And so then you start going down the slope of, do I raise the rent or do I not mess with it because I've got great tenants that have been here for this long?
And we've got rules for that.
Yeah.
We've got rules for that. Everything's a numbers game.
And we're here. I'm anxious to know. So what's that look like for you? Like, because that's a sort of a double-edged sword for a lot of people that are in the investment game. Like, they've been here for forever. They pay every single month at the same time, but I'm probably not maximizing the amount of rent that I can get out of these particular units. So how do you navigate that, basically?
So there's two primary ways that you look at it. So when you start assessing properties, there's a few rules that you use. But one of the rules that you use is cash flow. You have to use cash flow. Am I actually going to make money? And there are a lot of ways to improve cash flow. Well, there's actually 2 ways to improve cash flow, only 2. Either you make more money from the rents or you reduce your expenses.
Right.
Like that's the only way to increase income. So when you look at tenants that you believe will continue to be long-term tenants, one of the things that you factor in as an expense is vacancy. And you tend to factor in between 5 to 10%. If these people aren't really going to move, then you don't have to account for a 10% vacancy rate, which essentially means you're making 10% more in your cash flow. So when you assess properties with very, very long-term tenants, you have more flexibility on what you think the vacancy rate is going to be. So that's the first aspect. The second aspect is the income part of it. You don't want to increase tenants' rent to the point that they ever leave, because one of the largest expenses that you have with long-term rentals is the turnover cost, especially on properties that people have been living in forever. So in order to flip one of their units, it would be a $10,000 to $12,000 probably investment, right, just because they've been there so long, and to get it up to today's standards. So if you account for how much you'd have to spend to renovate it, then the question becomes, what's the gap between what they're paying and what the market rate is? And what we always do is we provide them options.
Yeah.
So we say, look, I'm going to tell you what this rent's at, and I'm going to tell you what you're paying. I'm not going to tell you what you should pay. What I am going to say is we can slowly increase your rent on a yearly basis to get closer to market, or we can increase your rent a slightly bigger jump right now, and I will hold that rate for 3 years. And we always provide both options. Because if an individual is at a set amount of income and an extra $50 a month they can afford, then they'll say, all right, every year I don't mind going up by 50.
Sure.
If they say, you know what, I would rather it be 125 right now so that I don't have to worry about increases year after year.
With them being on fixed incomes also, as long as you increase the same percentage that their income's going up,
correct,
it's a wash, basically. Right.
So we provide them with the options, and they always send us back what works best for them. So we have the ability to retain long-term tenants because they're choosing to pay us more.
And how much better is that relationship too? Because you're not this landlord that's just saying, hey, you're going to, starting next month, you're going to be, you give them options, you work with them on it, you're flexible on it, dude.
I think it's the best part of it's one of the reasons we haven't gotten property managers yet. The relationships that we form with our tenants, and sometimes tenants take advantage of you, and we've had to obviously go through the process of eviction and for tenants. Like, it always happens.
Yeah.
But I think our tenants, when I got into real estate, I probably haven't said as much about my background as I probably should. I grew up pretty,
right.
Like I grew up pretty dirt poor in the Bahamas. The Bahamas, when I say it's like living in Disney World, Coca-Cola at Disney World is $7 because you're at Disney World.
Yeah.
Well, when you're a local, you still pay the $7.
You still pay it.
So if you're not an affluent individual, you can't afford to live in the Bahamas. So we grew up with like houses that had me, my cousins, my uncles, my aunts, my parents, all of us under one roof, just surviving to make ends.
Bro, I get it. Even if you're not an affluent individual, that's the reason we drank Sands Light while we were down there.
That's fair. The Bahamas is ridiculously expensive.
We went to Jimmy, the Margaritaville before we went on a deep sea fishing excursion. We bought 6 Bud Lights. It was $47 for 6 Bud Lights. So Sands Light, man.
No, the Bahamas is insane. Normal people can't afford to live there. So I give this perspective because there were times that we had to move growing up that I was young enough that my parents shielded me from it. I didn't realize I was broke and poor until I looked back and realized I was broke and poor.
Yeah.
Like, my parents did a great job at doing that for me. But I always wanted to be the tenant I wish we always had. I mean, the landlord I wish we always had. I wanted to be a people person versus not just a numbers person in regards to rent. So I wanted to form relationships with our
perspective.
That was my rule. Like, I would rather be a personal landlord, buy the property so that it makes money, and then be a person to the people that you're supporting.
Right.
And that's what we've done with all of our properties. So our tenants, like, they've seen pictures of our sons. Like, they call to find out how he's doing. Like, they're a part of our family.
Yeah.
But we're their landlord. And it's like that type of relationship that we've always wanted to cultivate. And so with people like this at Nathan, they were the perfect addition because they understand that we care more about them and their well-being than we do just about the bottom line. And we're willing to do whatever it takes to keep them as tenants. But we can't lose for them to win. As long as we can both win, we are willing to take lower profit margins as long as all of us can be happy and you guys can enjoy where you're staying.
Fair and equitable for everybody.
It is. And it works out well. So we always offer the options. Like, and we tell them all of our numbers. Like, we're that transparent. We're like, with Nathan, when the property taxes in Kingsport started going up, because property and county taxes went up, God, government, we started to get really thin on profit margins, and the building's old, so we had to do some more maintenance. And so we told them, like, listen, we are losing money renting to you. This is why we're asking for a rent increase. Not because we want to make extra profit. Yeah. It's because we want to sustain the lifestyle that you guys have.
Sure.
Tell us what works best for you. And they told us. And we've used that exact approach on every single property since then.
So that just sort of set the bar, right?
It is. And we have a letter. I've drafted the letter which gives options. And we just provide options.
That's awesome, man. I had no idea. That's why we do this, man. That's why we come in here and have these conversations, right? So, Nathan Street. So that's 4. So that brings us up to a total of 11. Actually, no,
10.
We're at 10 because we sold Sands at this point in time.
10 then, yep.
Now we get to one of the coolest scenarios and situations. Man, people talk to me all the time. They're like, "What's the craziest thing that's ever happened to you in real estate? Tell me some of the coolest stories that's ever happened to you in real estate. What have some people done that you're going to remember forever?" Dude, this right here is one of the most insane things that I will forever remember, because I sell LJ the building that we met in when we discussed his investment goals back in 2015, 2016.
Yep.
So at this point in time, I am managing 5 or 6 apartments, 5 apartments upstairs, right?
It's 6 upstairs and then the
6
restaurant.
upstairs, then you've got the commercial space. So you've got 2 Dads Cafe and then the apartments up above. And I'm managing these for some people that I know, and they're looking at sort of, liquidating everything and getting rid of all their places. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm literally about to sell the place where I first met LJ to LJ.
Yeah. Yeah. The first day we ever met, we had lunch there, and I think the omelet, and a few years later,
you own the building.
I own the building that makes the omelets.
You own the building that makes the omelets now.
The building that makes the omelets.
Yeah,
they're great people. I love that restaurant.
They are good people. Those are really good folks there.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the first kind of multifamily / commercial sort of mixed use building that you had purchased for. So we've got 6 there. And then we've got the 1 commercial tenant. So we're up to 17 at that point in time. Now, we were busy in 2021, and we were even busier in 2022. But so 2022 comes around. So we now have the 17 units, and the condo game kind of presents itself over in Ridgefields at Eastleigh Court. Okay.
So what happened was Sullivan, because it's downtown Kingsport, Airbnb and VRBO started to become bigger, and just
I've got that down on here. So let's go ahead and dive into that.
Right. So we decided that 3 of the units, the rental units upstairs, to convert to Airbnb / VRBO / short-term rental / midterm rentals. So what we were really talking about was, we're going to furnish these and rent them as furnished rentals with everything included. Water, trash, electric, internet, everything. And we're going to see how it works, because those units were just single bedroom units.
Yeah.
So they're all 1 bedroom / studios. And if you think about like a contractor or a traveling nurse that's coming to the region, they're staying at extended stays. So they're staying inside a hotel room with a television and a bathroom, and they're paying $400 a week to stay at a hotel. And I'm looking at these 1 bedroom studio apartments. I'm like, we can make $400 a month, best case scenario, off of a studio or a 1 bedroom at that point in time in the market. I was like, if we furnish these, they're willing to pay $400 a week for $1,000, maybe $2,000 worth of furniture.
Yeah.
Like, you make your money back in 3 months.
So let me ask you this, because I have couple of short-term rentals also, which we furnish. So your upfront investment, and I know you've got a goal for this. We haven't discussed this, but I know you. How quickly do you want to recoup that upfront investment on your
3 days.
on your
Less than
furnishing?
3 months.
Less than 3 days. Okay,
than
so
3 months.
you do
Less than 3
it.
days.
You want it. You would do it on Tuesday. You want it by Friday.
Yeah, actually,
Man,
I want it
man.
as I'm putting it in. Less than 3 months. So the amount that we're willing to spend on a furnished rental, we have to get all of the furniture costs back within 3 months.
Man, okay. So mine was 5. So
Okay.
you're ahead of me again, man.
3 months. 3 months.
Yeah.
Because the benefit of that is, so what we buy our stuff is all aftermarket stuff. So
Sure.
we go to like Habitat for Humanity, Goodwill. We buy used furniture for the most part. We have some stuff that we buy new because it's easier to buy new. Things like mattresses. You can buy box mattresses off Amazon, and then you don't have to worry about transporting a mattress.
Sure.
So
basically the goal would be to try to get it secondhand, and
Yes.
for whatever the residual is, whatever you can't.
Correct. And the things that we
go buy
don't
it
get
new.
secondhand now, we've got a list of the things that we buy
Okay.
on Amazon or we buy from Walmart. Those are pretty much the 2 other places that we buy for our furnished rentals.
So now, are all of the units at 2 Dads, are all those VRBO, Airbnb, short term?
3 of them are VRBO, Airbnb.
Okay.
3 of the tenants have been there for 5+ years.
Okay.
And so we are not going to end their leases to convert them.
Right.
I'm very transparent. the 3 short-term rentals are making a lot more than the long rentals. But again, our personality is we're not going to kick somebody out of their home because we want to make money.
So if the people that are the long terms that have been there for 5+ years now, when they're out,
yeah, they're all getting converted.
Those are going to be converted.
Nope.
Okay.
No question. Again, you can make $400 a week on a studio.
Yeah.
You can make $400 a month if you rent it as a long term. So you're talking about $1,200 per month per unit.
What's your turnover like on your short terms?
They turn over faster than long term.
Sure.
But they get rented just as quickly. So you lose probably a week of the month at max.
Okay.
We've never gone a week without having them.
That's where I was going with that.
And we also didn't do Airbnb VRBO on the first 3. So there is something called short-term rentals.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone understands long-term rentals. There's a category called mid-term rentals.
Yep.
And MTRs are where all of the money is.
So that's where I am.
Yep.
On mine.
So
the only place that we advertise on ours is it's a website called Furnish Finders. I don't know if you all are on Furnish Finders.
We haven't put it up there yet. We haven't need to. We have a backlog.
Okay.
People waiting.
so and I'll explain. So I know that we're not making the most amount of money that we can make doing what we do, but I'm getting 800 credit score people in there, traveling nurses that are making a ton of money still, even I don't want to say post-COVID, but it kind of is post-COVID. And I know that for those are generally 2 to 4 month contracts that they have. Mm-hmm. And I know unless there is some sort of an emergency there, I'm not going to hear from them for 4 months.
Correct.
A lot of them receive stipends. So I've either gotten all the money up front or they're going to pay the first of every month. Because again, 800 credit score, that's an impeccable person. Like they're paying everything on time. So the only thing is I'm not maximizing profit, but there's a convenience factor.
That's exactly what it is. It is the maximum profit per hour.
There you go.
Our metric isn't gross earnings. Our metric is earnings per hour, earnings per effort.
Yeah.
So
hey, y'all who are listening, earnings per effort.
It's earnings per effort.
That was an LJ.
No, it's a real thing though. So like
I know you just invented it. Of course it is.
I don't know if I invented it.
This is where real things happen in this damn room, man. This is
so. I do not. Our goal is to retire early. The reason I want to retire early is
it's not just your rule. It's your hashtag.
Yeah, hashtag
retire early.
Hashtag retire now.
Retire now.
Retire now.
Sorry.
But so I am not I enjoy what I do at Eastman.
Yeah.
So there is a chance that I choose to continue to do that for the rest of my life.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to be able to choose what I do.
Sure, yeah.
And I want the freedom that I don't feel like I have to count on a paycheck to make decisions about the things that I want in life. Freedom is more important to me.
I enjoy working in real estate, but there's one other thing I enjoy more. That's not doing anything.
Yeah, exactly.
And still making money, right?
Freedom is more important than income.
Yeah.
It is. And so when you have to weigh how much money you're going to make, what you have to put against it is how much time do I have to spend to earn it?
There you go. You've got to apply a dollar figure to that, right?
It is. And so that for us, midterm rentals maximize the amount of earnings because you're renting a furnished rental to individuals that want all of the amenities. They don't stay as long, but I'm also not cleaning units every week or 3 times a week.
Go.
I'm also not trying to find how to get things fixed for short-term weekend partiers or things like that. So short-term rentals tend to make more upfront cash, but they require more upfront effort. Mm-hmm. Long-term rentals require the least amount of effort, depending on the tenant, but they give you no cash. Midterm rentals is like the best of both worlds. People rent it for 3 months, and they pay almost short-term rental cost because it's the best option for them. It's the best income per effort.
And I'll tell you, too, the other thing I like about it, too, generally, and this is in no means a discriminatory statement, but it's usually one person that is there. And when you start talking about utilities being included, your energy consumption is lower. Your water consumption is lower. The likelihood of something going wrong
is lower.
Is lower. So there are a lot of variables that are sort of ancillary variables, I guess, so to speak, that you don't really consider. But then when you start getting those bills coming in, be like, bro, like $20 less for the power bill, $20 less for the water bill. And I haven't heard anything in 2.5 months. I'll call just to make sure everything's all right and this person's still alive over there, right? Because, from the property management side, when you're getting a phone call every other day on some things, So yeah, I agree with you, man. That midterm game. And the thing that I love so much about Furnish Finders is, so it was established, I think, in like 2014, specifically for traveling nurses, right? But then once COVID hits and this ability for everyone to work from home, they opened it up to traveling professionals across the board. So really, the tenant pool grew exponentially during COVID because it's not just this one specific industry for your midterm rentals now. So I love it, man. Honestly, it's $99, I think, a year to be on there.
That's a win.
Yeah,
we haven't
it's
signed
fantastic.
up yet. We haven't had a need to sign up.
Yeah,
like
I get it. Yeah,
we are still checking people into Airbnb or our midterm rentals as of today. Like when people move out, I've got a list of people that I just message. Like, are you still looking? They're like, yeah, I'm still at Holiday Inn extended stay. I'm still at the Motel 6. I'm like, well, let me tell. I could beat the Motel 6.
Yeah,
I could tell you that. My TVs are bigger. You've got a stove. Like this. I got you.
Yeah.
You don't get the continental breakfast, but honestly, everybody knows the eggs suck. Like, like, come on over, make your own eggs.
And you've got new sheets. You don't need to break out the black light on that guy, right? It's not
works.
like Room Raiders off MTV when they were in there.
It works. They love it. So that got us to 17, and that's how we got into the townhomes.
Okay.
So we tested out the short-term rentals, the midterm rentals, I guess, and we're like, oh my God, we're making 4x what we were making on long-term rentals. We need to get more short-term, midterm rentals.
Yep.
And that's how we got into the townhouses. And I was like, Ridgefields? So golf course community?
Yeah.
And the people that were renting it was renting it for, the people that owned it, and their family lived in it. There are units in that building that were renting for like $600.
Yeah, that was the Elgashis that I've known. Again, more little winks here, man. We've
connections.
It was wild. So we add 2 more to the portfolio. So we're at what, 19 right now?
19. Yep. That was the beginning of this year.
Yeah, it was. Yep. So we did 1, 2, 3.
We went crazy this year.
So from this point forward,
I felt it.
1640 Highland Street comes into play. Yeah. Because, and again,
friends.
We know the people
that
on this one, right? They're other clients of mine and friends of yours.
Yep. Those people they're at my wedding. They had bought it a year before. And they bought it at the lowest rate they could possibly get it. I love my friends to death. Don't negotiate with friends. They wanted 4 arms and 60 legs.
Bro, you're talking a lot. You need something else to drink here.
I'll be right back to tell you how much I love my friends. What? Wait for it.
So this is Tyler Landers and Andrew Henry. So I've just moved Andrew to Nashville. Tyler's still here, actually. So I had actually sold them this. It's a 4-plex too, right? This is another 4-plex on Highland. So
yeah, it's a 4-plex.
I sold this to them last year, and it was another situation where we're kind of like, gosh, 4 units at this price. Like, what is happening here, right?
So there are rules, again, that you do when you're assessing properties, and one of the standard rules that exists is the 1% rule. Every true real estate investor
so here's what we're going to do here. So, because you're covering this, I've literally got this here, 1% rule. So we're going to jump around a little bit. So how do you decide if it's a good investment? So I want you to hit on this because you've got a few different things that people look at. There's capitalization rate, there's the 1% rule, and you personally, I know that based off of some of these recommendations and rules of thumb, you've sort of developed your own algorithm. But I want you to go ahead and talk about.
I'll give you. So I follow Bigger Pockets. I'm not a sponsor of Bigger Pockets. I mean, if you guys would like me to be, I would be an affiliate. Just let me know how I can make some money too. But they have a lot of things that they teach you when it comes to real estate investing. There are 4 primary measures that I have gathered from them. 3 of them are what I use locally. The 4th measure I'll very briefly talk on, and the 4th measure is better in vacation locations. So, and it's equity. If you buy a property in Florida, the rate in which that property appreciates over time is higher than if you buy a place in the middle of nowhere, because more people are wanting to move to the higher density places.
Sure.
We are investing in the Tri-Cities. Equity growth is not the major driver for investing decisions in the Tri-City. Gatlinburg, equity growth makes a lot of sense.
Right.
Florida, California, New York, those places appreciate tremendously. So I have not used equity growth as a measure of success for our investments. I use the other 3. The first one is a screening, which is the 1% rule. The 1% rule is the rule that if you're doing real estate investing and you don't know the 1% rule, then you're not really investing.
Right.
You look at a property, you say it's worth $100,000. can I make $1,000 off of it?
So
That's
the monthly rent needs to be equal to or greater
than 1%.
Than 1% of the purchase price.
Correct.
Yep.
That's what the 1% rule is. So $100,000, I need to make $1,000 in rent. That is now that doesn't mean that you can buy or don't buy, but that's normally the first, like if the person has the property listed at $200,000 and that property can only rent at $1,000, you probably don't do the other measures.
Sure.
Because you're not going to get the other measures to work out if that's the difference between their sale price or their requested sale price and your purchase price.
Do you take into consideration what your upfront expenses are going to be in the 1%?
Not in the 1%.
Okay. So
the 1% doesn't have any expenses in it.
Okay.
The 1% is simply purchase price versus income.
Okay.
That's the 1%. So if it passes or it's close to the 1% rule, so I'll also mention I've never bought anything under 1%, but that's only in the Tri-Cities. I think the United States average for investors is like 0.6 right now.
Okay.
So it's now considered the 0.6 rule, but not in Tri-Cities. 1% is my minimum. So after you've done that, then you start putting in expenses. And then once you put in the expenses, there are two measures that make sense. The first measure, 1%, should I even consider it? The second two measures are, should I buy it? The first one is cash on cash return. So cash on cash return is how much money do I have to spend and how fast do I get my return back? Cash on cash return. So it's a return on investment. The second one is cash flow. After I have invested, how much money am I going to make on a monthly basis? If I can meet all three of those metrics, it's greater than 1%, it's greater than 12% cash on cash, and I'm cash flowing more than $150 per unit. If I can meet all three of those, then I put in the offer.
Green light.
And if I can't meet all three of those based on the list price, the offer that I send to you is the number that allows me to make all three of those.
Okay.
That's why I always tell you it's a numbers game. I'm like, hey, I can't do it at what they're asking. If they're willing to accept this, all three of the numbers work. Because a lower price means a lower down payment.
Right.
So my cash on cash is easier to hit. And a lower price means lower monthly payments, which means my cash flow increases. So that's like, those are our options. I have to be green or yellow. I've got like a range, but those are the three. The only time I ever consider not pursuing it based on those three metrics is sometimes with midterm rentals, because with midterm rentals, you earn so much more money that, like with Eastleigh Court, the rental rate was $600, but we bought it for like $120. So that's a 0.5% rule.
But that's where that's just knowing what market rate is basically, right?
Yes.
So that's why I kind of throw the cap rate out. Because I mean, you could have someone who's just not charging enough for rent basically. So I mean, if you're just totally taking capitalization rate, so that's going to be your annual net operating income divided by your purchase price. If they're just not doing a good job of maximizing their rent, that's going to be skewed, right? So it becomes sort of a gut thing at that point also.
So cap rate is great when comparing businesses.
Sure.
It's great if I wanted to compare this property to a Taco Bell or compare this property to a small business. It's also good to compare properties, but it's not great because cap rate is very dependent on management.
Oh, sure.
How much are you renting it for? How much are you managing expenses?
Right.
That is how you calculate cap rate. So if you think you're a better manager than the previous people, then just I don't even look at cap rate.
Take it out of the, I don't either. There are a lot of people that for some reason that's it. You know, they look at what capitalization rate is.
It's the global
and
standard.
I really used to, you know, until I really kind of got into this, and I was like, well, number one, if you have people who are mismanaging the property, that's going to be skewed. And number two, if they're not really keeping a good record of what expenses are, that's the other thing, because then you're just estimating what you feel like expenses are going to be, right? Yeah. So it's a guessing game at that point in time.
Cap rate is a great measurable when comparing different types of businesses.
Yeah.
I think if you're solely looking at real estate, the other three measures are better.
Man, I'm glad we hit on that, because that was one of the biggest things that I wanted to hear from you, but I know that people who are watching this, because you've been so good at this,
I'm going to hate it.
I mean, but so basically 1%, and that's my biggest driver is going to be that 1% rule. You know, that's what I look at with everything now is the 1% rule. So that's how you determine if it works for you, if it's a good investment. So you do Eastleigh, the 2 condos on Eastleigh, those are now midterm.
They're all midterm, yeah.
Okay, so those are all midterm rentals. Then we get Highland, which is Highland all long term now, or are
Highland's
those?
all long term. So all of the tenants that are at Highland are still at Highland.
And then we hit your biggest
Pine Street
to date on Pine Street. So three separate buildings, correct?
4 buildings.
4 buildings.
4 buildings. 3 buildings in the front, and then a 2-bedroom, 1
Oh, I
bath
forgot
in the
about
back.
that one single one
Yep.
in the back. So we had to get creative with Brent over at Powell Valley National. And
shout out to Brent. You're part of the family as well.
Let's plug that dude right now.
Brent, I love you.
Brent Mullins and Powell Valley National Bank. Man, when you start talking about needing some creative options for the investment game, those guys, local banks guys, telling you, that dude has he's just as much responsible for this as I am.
Yeah, I agree. No,
he's been
I consider Brent a part of the team.
Sure.
Brent's a part of the team. He gets a Christmas card.
So how many units are we looking at on Pine Street?
17.
17.
So
when we closed on Pine Street, ESPN has 30 for 30.
I had the 40 for 40.
We hit 40 for 40.
Listen, this has
40
been
units in 40 months.
This has been the 40
one.
for 40 year for me. So when we closed on Pine Street, I'd gotten 40 units in 40 months. And this year I got 40 under 40.
40 under 40.
This is the 40. This is my 40 year. This is it. But yeah, so that got us 40 units. We started off with the first multifamily with Tiffany Court. That was 6. And less than 40 months later, we had 40 units.
Yeah.
So from 6 units to 40 units in it was 39 months. And I was upset because the appraisal was coming with the appraisal was delayed for Pine Street.
Very delayed.
Yes.
Well, and that's not uncommon still because commercial appraisals have been so backlogged. Multifamily has just, it's completely exploded. And we literally, and because Brent told me this, he was like, we've got like 4 commercial appraisers. Everybody does in this area, and they're coming from Knoxville. I just had one done 2 weeks ago. The dude drove up from Maryville. So, it was super delayed.
Well, I was like, you know what? If we can get this done at the time that we're supposed to get this done, it's gonna be under 40 months, and it'll be really cool for me to tell all of the people that I know that I got 40 units in 40 months, and they were like, no, it's gonna be delayed. It's going to be delayed. I'm like, no, it's not. I'll appraise this thing myself.
Yeah.
Listen, the outlets work.
Can't be 40 and 41.
Yo,
don't mess this up.
Nobody cares about 40 and 41.
Because I know you would have found out who dropped the ball on this.
Listen, they would not get a Christmas card.
There would have been an underwriter somewhere.
Oh my goodness. I remember talking to Tiffany about it, and I was like, listen, Tiff, I know this is petty. I'm a grown man. But I want this.
And you were having that conversation with her, and you'd already had the shirt on that said 40 and 40.
Listen, I was already investigating how to become an inspector. I was going to do this myself. I was going to inspect that shit myself. I was like, awesome. Nope, all the outlets work. This is definitely worth it. I remember that conversation. Oh my goodness. I wanted it. I'm not going to lie. I wanted it.
So that was the last one. That's where we're sitting at right now. Is a 40, but we've got one
coming right now.
Yeah, we're marinating one right now, man. We're salt and pepper in that guy.
So the market's changed. So one of the things that's happened over the last few years is that equity inside a lot of the investments has gone through the roof, which is why the market increase in properties has gone so high. With interest rates going up, the market is obviously slowing down. But with interest rates going up, it also is harder to hit cash flow.
Sure.
So in order to hit cash flow, the interest rate is a large component of that, because it talks about how much your mortgage is going to be. With these higher mortgages, you have to get better deals in order to be green on all 3 metrics. And I'm a numbers guy. So if it's not green on all 3...
You got to get better deals, or you got to charge more on the back end with rent.
Yes, or you have to convert them to short-term and midterms if they're long-terms. So there's another alternative to doing that. And what it does is it increases your cash on cash immediately. And because you're doing it up front, and I'll explain what it is, you also have the ability to decide at the beginning whether you can hit your cash flow. And it's buying properties that need work. So if you can purchase a 9,000 square foot box and put in units inside of it, 20 units, 450 square foot units inside that 9,000 square foot box, the 9,000 square foot box is only like $200,000 to buy. And that means you only have to put 20% down on $200,000, 40 grand.
Right.
If I tried to buy a 20 unit property, that's $1.3 million.
Millions, yeah.
Yeah. So that's $260,000 down payment. And so we only bought a bunch of properties that were fully furnished before, but I can't put up $200,000 at a down payment at these interest rates and get the cash flow to hit my cash on cash.
Sure.
So in order to do it, I have to buy properties that need work and then get a construction loan. Because construction loans, you don't have to put a down payment down.
Right.
So you can buy a $200,000 property, get a $600,000 construction loan. Now you own an $800,000 property.
And most of those are interest only too,
and
for a specific period of time.
Which means you cash flow tremendous the first 9 to 12
Right.
months. It's like a win-win-win. The loss is for 9 until the property's up and running, you don't make any money.
You lose money.
Yeah. So you're paying interest on a property that's empty.
But the good news is that it's only interest.
It's only
interest.
Well, so the thing is, it is only interest, but it wouldn't have worked if we didn't have 40 units beforehand.
Right.
Because if your first property was interest on, I think so. When we did Pine Street, we did $600,000, $650,000, I think, was what we bought it for, and then we got
$650.
Yep, $650, and then I think we got like a $200,000 loan for renovations.
Yep.
In order to pay the mortgage on $650,000, we had to have income from the other property. So you can't just buy a $400,000 property with no income. Because if you do that, you're responsible for finding the cash to pay the bank, even if it's interest only.
Well, and this is really a good segue into the conversation that we just had when I talked to Brent, because we figured out that there's going to be a loan product where we can get seller credit to offset what you're going to be paying
those mortgage rates
prior to cash flowing this guy.
Yeah.
Right. So,
yep. And that I'm shocked that we've never heard of that before.
And see, and I'm going to interrupt you. I'm sorry, because here's the great thing about having a client like LJ is that it forces your hands to figure out ways to make things work and creating super creative scenarios to get things across the finish line, man. Honestly, like LJ challenges me, and Brent too. We had this conversation, man, because these are not scenarios that we're going to run across just in our day-to-day. So like, I love the fact that I have this dude, because if this ever surfaces again, I'm going to be able to pull that tool out of my back pocket and be like, you know what? This went down back in December of 2022.
I remember it.
I know what to do here.
I was inside my pajamas and I called you. I was like, listen, I got a problem that I need you to solve. Yeah. I was like, this is what I want to do. Can you do it? And you called me 24 hours later with a solution.
This is it. Like, we got it.
Solution. I loved it. I was
got
like,
this figured out.
Let's do this.
Yeah.
So that should be 20 units, and I'll get us to 60 in 2023.
Yep.
And that's the goal. We might get more than 60 in 2023, but that should get us the first purchase, I hope. We'll see if the sellers are willing to agree to those terms.
And in the meantime, he's going to treat himself, because next week we're closing on a lakefront piece of land.
We are.
That finally, Tiff, after being property management extraordinaire, wife of the year, mom of the year, to Bebe, right?
She's earned it.
She's earned it.
She's earned it.
You've earned it too, man.
Earned it.
You've earned it too. So yeah, man, as hard as this guy works, he believe me, he plays even harder. And everybody on the island thinks this guy's a nutcase because the dude's going down double black diamonds.
I'm a bit of an extremist. I'm an extremist.
You are. You're a maverick, man. You're the maverick from Nassau.
I always. So I've told Tiffany I don't like normal.
Yeah.
Like I'm an extreme.
Yeah.
I don't like normal. So when it comes to working, whether it's at Eastman, whether it's in property management, whether it's anything that I'm doing, I give everything to it to the point that 100% I'm exhausted
can attest
when
to
I'm
that.
done with it. But when I have fun, like even my coworkers that I've added on Facebook, I warned them ahead of time, like, you're not gonna see just professional LJ, because when I turn up, I turn out.
Yeah.
Like I am the epitome of work hard, play. Can I curse on this?
Yeah, dude.
Fucking hard. Right. Like I am like that wild. Like if people only knew me for having fun, they would think that I didn't have a penny in my name by how hard we go on the ridiculous shit that we do.
That's it, man.
But on the other side,
and I get to experience that firsthand in March at Snowshoe?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yep. You get to get that. We're not going to talk about everything that's going to go down while I'm doing black diamonds and shots.
I won't see it because I'm going to be on the blues.
Yeah.
So, but
enough alcohol, you'll be everywhere. Enough alcohol, you'll be everywhere,
including the emergency room.
Yeah. So that's our next. I guess that's our next closing. We bought We bought an acre on Boone Lake, and we closed.
I mean, technically, it is a laker, right? I like the way you combine
this. Yeah, it is a laker. We bought an acre on Boone Lake, and so we're going to be building our dream house on Boone Lake. I guess soon. I don't know when that's going to be.
Yeah.
I've dropped this mic a few times. I'm sorry if the audio got messed up. I love y'all. Just remember that. All right. Yeah. that wasn't gang signs. That was just peace and
Yeah.
love and harmony.
So, live hard, play harder, retire now. My man LJ, forever. I was just talking to somebody the other day, man, just to kind of squirrel off here. And they were like, who's some of your best friends? I was like, you know what, man? I've got, and Blair talks about this too. Like, I have very few close friends. I have a billion acquaintances and a lot of good friends just because of the nature of what I do, man. And I do this client appreciation party, which January 21st, it's going down. You guys should be getting the invites here very soon.
Don't miss it.
Which one am I pointing at, Anthony? Yeah, this one right here. Yeah,
right.
January 21st. This is going to be bigger than ever, so it's coming out soon. But Blair's right. I have all these just like acquaintances and kind of surface relationships. I love everybody. Mm-hmm. But I was like, man, I got about 5 dudes that I would do anything for. You were in them 5 dudes, man.
Yes, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. You are family.
Yeah.
You know that. Like,
for real.
And Tiffany and I talk about it, like without me having the opportunity to have met you, we wouldn't be where we are.
Yeah.
And for a lot of reasons.
Man.
If you think about some of the deals that we've closed, they were people that you knew that I never would have met.
Yep.
Like we've done Pine Street, 17 units, off market. Sullivan, the first time we realized the power of midterm rentals, off market.
Off market, yeah.
Like
Highland was off market.
Highland was off market.
That was sort of in our circle.
Our circle, yeah.
Yeah.
So like our ability to grow so quickly is only been a catalyst due to the relationship that we've been able to form and the trust that we've had. I remember like 2 years ago, I was looking at a property in Orbank actually, and you told me no. And I remember thinking to myself, this guy's the realtor. Like he gets a commission if I buy the property. And he just told me no to his income. And
that was listed like 4 or 5%. That was going to be a good paycheck for me. Yeah.
Listen, it was a good one.
Yeah.
It was a good one. I remember sitting back.
We didn't eat that month. I sacrificed that for you, man.
Hey, I would have sent you noodles. But I remember going home and talking to Tiffany about it. I'm like, Seth literally just told me no to making money for his family because he didn't think it was a good decision for us.
And the reason why is because if something goes substantially wrong with that in the first 2 months that you've had it, and it's something that I could have prevented, then nothing from that point forward ever happens, right? So that's people. There are people who have the ability to only see short term, and then those people obviously have the inability to see down the road too. And it's just a really crappy thing to do. Beyond that, right? So
again, it was a unique. It's kind of like talking to a banker and the banker telling you not to invest inside the fund that their bank sponsors.
Sure.
And I was like, well, this is different.
Yeah,
like,
right.
This is different.
Yeah.
So I really appreciated that, and again, we've loved you ever since. We love you to death. You know that.
Well, we've got a team, man. We've got a team.
It's
Me,
a great
you,
group.
Brent.
Yep, it's a great group.
The inspectors, everybody. I mean, it's all one comprehensive group of dudes just trying to do one and do the next one beyond that. So, dude, I'm so glad you came here to my house for the first time at the house.
First time I've been at the house. So
it's always outside of the house.
We are friends. I have been to his old house. He just got he also moves like every year and a half because he's a realtor. And so anytime he sees something that hits the market, instead of telling his friends, he just buys it. So this is like the 17th house that he's been at. I've just not been to this house yet. All right. It's this home that I've not been to. But I'm happy to be here.
Well, we got to start prepping for snowshoe.
Yeah, we are. We got to snowboard.
Thanks for coming, brother. Love you.
I appreciate it.
Anthony,
wait, I got to make a plug. Wait. No, one last thing. So this podcast, right? This is awesome. We're also going to do another podcast on financial coaching, which Seth's going to help me out with. And
I'm going to help him out with the podcast, not financial coaching.
Yeah, he's going to be a part of the whole conversation. So you guys stay tuned.
My wife just walked in with hair extensions. You don't want me part of financial coaching. Right?
She looks phenomenal.
Did she not look incredible?
Looks phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. Phenomenal. But yeah, so why be realistic? Look out for it next year. We're going to start launching our podcast. It's a combination of YOLO, you only live once, so that extreme side of me, plus FIRE, financial independence, retire early, so the other extreme side of me, and we're going to try and mesh those things together, have your cake and eat it too kind of thing. So look forward to that the next year. I don't know exactly the month that they're going to come out yet, but I am excited to do it.
Me too.
Why be realistic, man?
I don't know.
Why be realistic?
We'll try to figure that out.
Man, this is awesome.
See you, buddy.
I appreciate this. Thank y'all. Be safe.
He sells homes. He sells homes. in different areas.